If the 9/11 it happens again, it might be with nuclear weapons, will the United States stand by and then decapitate its own government? I hope it will not, but I hope it will not have to actually unleash itself on Iran if the Iranians had nothing to do with that sort of attack. You know, as Niall Fergusson says, he would attack Iran. You know, he's advising McCain to attack Iran or come to terms with Iran. I would try and bring, as it said, this is versus Michael Schuerer versus Niall Fergusson versus Infokemp in the debate. I would try and bring Iran in from the cold, and I would do that through economic incentives and the carrot and the stick method of threatening military intervention, if so. But if there is a 9/11 style attack again, we only have to look to the Saudi and Binladen crime families, because they were the ones who did that original attack, and then deal with their affiliates in the Islamic Maghreb, Yemen, such as Al-Aqwi, and West Africa and other places. But as Michael Schuerer said, we're not killing enough of them, and we're not killing enough efficiently, and by that I mean the Bin Laden crime families operatives and Saudi crime families operatives. We're not killing enough effectively because we're not using our conventional military forces in the way that Michael Schuerer would want them to be used. But there is a point in saying that, as I said in my video, British Army versus American Army, in winning hearts and minds, in a Fabian economic incremental way of the Western warfare, to cut all the economic and social connections with the enemy, you know, from their own people, and that is winning hearts and minds. So I'm not quite certain as to which method we should use against Al Qaeda. Certainly I believe that we should be killing more of them, but I don't think we should give up completely on winning their hearts and minds of the Arab and Muslim population of the world. Surely the only way to drain the swamp, as Bush said infamously, is to change the mindset of people. That's not to undermine the component of Muslim faith, but to bring about the Muslim enlightenment that would allow democracy and human rights to enter that civilization. The problem is that Al Qaeda on one side and the Islamic republics and tyrannies would fight us to the bitter end. So my solution is that we have constitutional monarchies on the British model for Arabia, and that these are in the Gulf region, constitutional republics in the northern and central region of Arabia, and that on the American model, and that these are done by the Arabs themselves, that we will eventually withdraw from the Middle East, because there are two conflicting arguments between Michael Schuerer and Niall Fergusson. They're both right. Michael Schuerer says if you have an empire, you inevitably put more and more sunk cost into that empire until your empire goes bust, and that destroys your country. Niall Fergusson is saying that if you don't expand, you die. But no, there have been very few successful empires, you know. So I tend towards expanding through the European model of various trading blocks, but with sovereign countries. Because if you are to create an empire, you must colonise it with people in such numbers that it becomes part of a nation state. And you either give that nation state, that new territory, with a new identity, new racial makeup, and new constitutional republic and social democracy, if that's the model you're choosing, independence, you know, or you put it as part of your state and you govern it as a province or a state within your nation state. such as as a federal state, such as the way the Russians work, or the American, or America itself was created. You give them various amounts of autonomy, but you're gradually colonising and colonising and colonising until there is no difference between your empire and your nation state. The empire becomes your nation state. That's the only way an empire can work, but that takes considerable resources and considerable investment of time. We're talking centuries, and a almost pathological one way of looking at things. This is why I believe that this is not possible. What is more possible is internal colonisation, what is called internal colonisation within Europe, to build up the European population of European descent, that is people of Nordic, Celtic and Roman descent, to colonise Europe, and eventually drive out or assimilate the people who have come here through immigration from North Africa and the Middle East and East Asia and others. In terms of East Asia, it will probably be much more easy because they will assimilate, because there is cultural connections between the East Asia and the West, which happened after the Second World War, with the introduction of Japan into the global economic order of things. Now, this brings me back to challenging what Alex Jones said, but that there is a new world order. Well, the new world order that he speaks of is exactly what he is. It's Exxon, and that is not as powerful as the Bin Laden crime family or the Saudi crime family, because they are the suppliers of oil. Right? Exxon is just the seller in many regards. It does have pipelines of its own. It does have construction companies and its own private military arms in the form of Haliburton, and maybe even Blackwater may be involved with that. Although I'm not as suspicious of Blackwater as I am of Haliburton and Exxon, but they are minuscule in power to the Saudis. The Saudis may have trillions of pounds. The Saudis have hundreds of thousands of people working for them. They're even worse than the Bin Ladens by Michael Schuerer's estimation. They're imperialists and they want to take over this planet. So if you've got any questions onto whether 9/11 was able to be done by Exxon-style oil companies or the Bin Ladens or Saudis, it's quite obvious that the Saudis and Bin Ladens have much more expertise. They've been fighting this war since post Second World War. They've been fighting the West and each other, and they've been building buildings and demolishing buildings and hijacking planes. They have everything in their favour to do such an operation as 9/11. And it's lucky that it wasn't even worse, because if the people on that plane in Pennsylvania did take down the hijackers, but the hijackers unfortunately crashed the plane, then it could have been even worse. The Congress of the United States could have been wiped out. And then if Jones and his gang of treasonous bastards, evil bastards, right, got their way, then there would have been a coup d'etat in America, right? So the two different groups are enemies, but they are in a sense working in each other's common interest. Why? Because they hate democracy. They hate the United States Constitution. They want to trap every conceivable opposition into being tainted by having one opinion or the other. You're either in the block of people who said that Al Qaeda hate us because of our freedoms, which is clearly not true, right? Osama bin Laden never said that. Osama bin Laden said that he wanted to expel the West from Saudi Arabia